Let's begin just by settling in. We welcome everyone connecting with us in this video, in this space, and beyond. Today we are seeking rest, perhaps enlightenment, peace. We're told these things are immediate to us. They don't need to be developed. We can find them in the moment. We also know often it does take practice. It takes returning to sense of peace, to awareness itself, to our sense of being again and again before we realize that our minds are the observed. Our personality is observed. We don't have to center in these things. Today we get settled, allowing ourselves moments rest. Rest beyond sleep. Noting that there's a sense of awareness itself that watches that perceives even who we think we are as that arises. And that everything else in our lives have been observed, from what we think we are to every experience, passing, changing, changeful. And so we turn to rest in this place of observation. Beingness beyond change. To help us find this, let's set our histories to the side for a moment. We can find them again when we're done. But any thought about history, about ourselves, about what's happened to us, about who we are even, who we've been, just setting that aside. It's possible. We can easily just let that go. And any thought or worry about the future. We set those aside, noting that new thoughts are fresh but passing. And as we set it aside, even those momentary passing thoughts fade. And any analysis about the current moment, any judgment, imagination about now, or about other in the current moment, set those aside as well. Note that we can still feel our bodies, our sense of being, breath. We're still here even without those meandering thoughts. And as thoughts still arise, they still come, just returning, just noticing that you observe them, and centering in that space of presence, of observation, beyond description, really, almost like emptiness, but clear, there, here, aware. Letting go of any sense of waiting. There's no sense of waiting in this space. Even that sense is observed by our intrinsic awareness, by this openness of consciousness. A part of us that's uncomfortable, anxious, ready for something, waiting, is observed as well. And these things don't need to be fought or squashed, but just noticing that they're observed. There's a place in you that observes these things. Indeed, it's the space that observes everything. Something that's present before even your name, before you knew how to speak, before you knew or thought you knew what was going on. Similar to dreams, this space is there. The confusion of the waking moment. Any sense of knowing or wisdom is seen in this space. And like love, this space embraces all. It has no opinion about this or that. Indeed, it observes opinion, and the one who has the opinion, that idea of ourselves that we can perceive, and although somewhat detached, this space of awareness is said to be love itself. It embraces all, uplifts life intrinsically, naturally, without trying. The sages say as we come to rest in this space, joy unshakable arises, peace beyond what we imagine to be peace. And our life expression, our actions, outward and inward, start to shine from this light shared by all being and all beings. So setting aside our history and future, or any analysis. And as thoughts arise, asking who is seeing this, and noting that they are seen. Seeing for yourself. Who is perceiving this? Can you detect? Is it a sense of self, an idea of a person? Or is it beingness itself? This stillness and peace and quiet that we find as we set these thoughts aside, as we become aware of the observer, the spacious observer within. That there are no worries, and that this is not something we have to create. It's not something we imagine. It's something we discover within. In a sense, always there, since it is the sense of awareness itself, the root of consciousness itself. And although it may take practice coming back to the spaciousness, the peace within, seeing for ourselves how true it is, how restful, how little effort it took to return. Indeed, returning to our natural state is effortless despite the effort. We find that our minds, when we narrow ourselves into our sense of personality, that is the true way. The misery of defensiveness and anxiety, guilt and judgment, cruelty and suffering. And joy there as well. Where is that joy rooted in? Where is the wellspring of peace and love? When we're centered in our personhood and our ego, we tend to find joy when our arrogance is resolved, when it celebrates. Because in a way, that arrogance reflects the ego, what it is, a false sense of self, one that's defensive and seeks to dominate due to that fear. But the spaciousness within, what's a reflection of that spaciousness? Something we don't have to yearn for and work towards. We can find it now. Noting that our sense of self and idea of ourself and personality is perceived as a big step in realizing how imaginary it is and finding that spaciousness beyond imagination that allows for every moment of thought. We tend to have a habit of identifying with some aspect of our thinking and feeling, sometimes tied to feelings in our body. So just noticing that even that habitual identification is noticed, is seen from somewhere. No matter how sticking around it is, it doesn't matter. Just noticing that it's observed. Allow yourself to rest in this state. Not needing to think about what's happening next in an hour, tomorrow. Not carrying the past, some idea of ourselves, even that, let it go. We can pick it up on our way out if we'd like. Just taking these moments to center on that sense of being that observes even our sense of personality, who we think we are. even as that personality arises and goes here or there, even that is observed, is held by this sense of being. So turning towards that spaciousness, that stillness in our awareness, even as the other things keep chirping, trying to get us to follow them. Just returning, noting that even this is observed. That there's a part of you beyond those thoughts. Remember how easily this space arises. Just takes a moment to set aside our worries, our thoughts about the past and future, and just letting go of the analysis. And noticing even that sense of self that almost seems ready to spring on a thought is observed. And if you feel hounded by some habitual thought or something in your mind, an object, an idea, a feeling, just ask, who is it that this is speaking to? Who is caught up in this? Can I observe the one caught up in this situation, this issue? Because as we realize that even that idea of ourselves that gets caught up in these problems, or that desire, or that fear, as we observe that even that sense of self is observable, we find a type of spaciousness within. In effect, realizing that there's part of us that's deeper, broader than any of these perceptions, these imaginations. When we're caught up in that sense of self and the issues in our thoughts, it's like we're constricted. Our sense of being is constricted down to whatever that momentary passing thought is, that issue, that anxiety, that sense of identity. And yet all that has been concocted in the field of awareness, in the light of God, the higher power of the universe. And so just noticing in this spaciousness that it has no edge, not one that we can perceive. That has no desire, has no fear of death, of anything. That it's a peace without an idea of peace. Whole without an idea of wholeness. And as it's not imagined, it's something discovered within, before thought, before our ideas, that it must be shared. It must be shared between beings. Indeed, we can acknowledge that we were conscious as a baby, before we knew our name. We were aware, without any idea about what was happening. We were present, living our life, seeking water or sustenance as we needed it, connecting with love and laughter as it arose. Indeed, the sages say in this state we don't have to give up our lives, our families, but we can find a peace, a naturalness, without all the stilted, false ideas about who we are and our ego. And as such, no need to defend, to attack, to worry. As Christ said, don't worry about tomorrow. And as the Buddhists teach us, to stay centered in the present moment brings the end of suffering, end of worry and anxiety. And like a heavy load, instead of picking one little thing off every once in a while and then dropping to the side to ease our struggle, we can just set the whole bag down, the whole load aside, at least for a moment. Something in our mind might come up and say, well, what's next? Or what about this thing? There's that thing. You should probably think about that a little more. Oh, but you like this thing. You want to think about this thing. Just noticing that even that is observed. That tendency itself is in this spaciousness. It doesn't have to be fought. You are not those thoughts, even if they try to string you along. Just noticing our bodies as we do so, that the feeling in our body is still there. In our head, there may be even some pain, some tightness. We don't have to label thoughts over those feelings. As a seeker of peace, we may tell ourselves, it's not quite there yet. I don't quite know what that peace is. I'm not quite there. Just notice where that's coming from. We're told by the sages, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, and others, that this presence, that this peace is always with us. It's the source of life, of awareness. It doesn't need to be found in a reaching sense, just discovered, uncovered within. And indeed, not even uncovered, just noticed. To find it, just notice when you identify with something other than it. And return to a sense of being, of space, beyond words. Again, setting aside the thoughts of the past and the future and any analysis. No need for analysis. Your mind can't get you here, can't carry you to peace. You carry your mind. As Muji says, your body doesn't say, you're me. We identify with our bodies. We're taught to identify with our thinking. Yet there's something else there that allows for all the changeful ideas we have. It's not an idea. As other thoughts arise, remember the peace found in setting them aside, letting them rise, but not following them. Finding your natural interest in that peace. Noting that it doesn't have to be exchanged for you to live your life. Despite what your mind may say, oh, all these worries are necessary. All these thoughts need to be expanded upon. Why don't you follow me? And despite the anxiety, the pain from the mind, the suffering, despite any cruelness or judgment we carry from it about ourselves, our bodies, other people, we're still so friendly with it. We're still so attached to it. We don't need to destroy it. But we don't have to center our beingness in it, our attention, always following the bone like a dog. Even if finding the peace seems cyclical, right now it seems like practice is needed. Perhaps as you remind yourself that even the one who feels like you can't find it is observed, helping you to take a step back into the spaciousness, into a felt sense of it. That you still have to do that again and again, or whatever it is. Just noting that even so, that spaciousness, that peace is with you, never lost. That even those ideas are observed, the person thinking them is themselves observed. Those thoughts must come from something that feels needy, that feels lost and limited. That isn't you. Not now, not ever. We've just come to identify with that limited sense of self. And so accept rest as your gift in every moment. Grace has brought you to this place. Grace is that question, that yearning for peace, for transcendence, for wholeness, for love, for wisdom, for insight and intuition. So allow grace to take you home. No need to fight it. It's you. Letting go of your trappings, the masks. What need of a mask? Even those things we often think we'd hide behind a mask, that's part of the mask. In that space of peace, you know this for yourself.